In January 1985, a 25-year-old British climber named Joe Simpson was standing on a summit in Peru eating a chocolate bar. Not metaphorically, literally, a chocolate bar, the kind you buy at a petrol station for 40 pence. He had carried it all the way up Silla Grande, 20,814 feet of ice and rock, and near vertical wall that had defeated every climbing team that had previously attempted it, specifically so he could eat it at the top, which is either the most human detail in the history of mountaineering, or a warning sign about his priorities. Either way, he was eating his chocolate bar. His climbing partner Simon Yates was standing next to him. The Andes stretched below them in every direction. They had just completed a first ascent of the west face, a route that serious mountaineers had looked at and said, "Maybe not." Joe Simpson and Simon Yates had looked at the same route and said, "Chocolate bar weather." For approximately 4 minutes, everything was perfect. Then they started descending, and Joe Simpson stepped onto a section of snow that looked exactly like every other section of snow on the mountain. It was not. His foot broke through. He fell, and his right leg drove straight up through his knee joint, with a sound he has spent 40 years trying to find the right words for, and has never quite managed. He was at 19,000 feet, in a blizzard that was getting worse by the hour, 2 days from base camp, with a knee that was not broken. It was destroyed. In mountaineering, a destroyed knee high on a remote mountain is not a problem. It is a death sentence. But here is the question that this story actually asks. Not whether Joe Simpson survived. You already know he survived. The question is what a man does with his mind when his body has stopped cooperating, when nobody is coming, when the only light he can see is below him in the dark at the bottom of a crevasse, and whether, if you were in that crevasse, you would have looked down. Welcome to Untold Archive, the channel that finds the stories of warriors, survivors, and underdogs who faced impossible situations and extracts every lesson they left behind. Today, Joe Simpson, the climber who fell into a crevasse in the Peruvian Andes with a destroyed knee, no food, no water, and a climbing partner who had cut the rope and descended the mountain believing he was dead, and crawled out anyway, using nothing but his mind. Let's go. Number 1, the two men on the mountain. Joe Simpson and Simon Yates were not famous climbers. No sponsors, no support team, just two young British men, 25 and 21, with enough money for a trip to Peru and a base camp helper named Richard Hawking. Their target, the west face of Silla Grande, a near vertical 4,500-foot wall. Every team before them had turned back not from lack of courage, but because the route was genuinely, unreasonably dangerous. Simpson and Yates studied it anyway, and decided it was their problem. They began climbing on January 6, 1985. 3 days of technical ascent, thin air, no margin for error. On January 8th, they reached the summit. Simpson ate a chocolate bar. For 4 minutes, everything was exactly what they'd come for. Then they started down. Number 2, the sound. Descending that afternoon, Simpson stepped onto a patch of snow that looked like every other patch. It wasn't. His foot broke through, and he fell only 3 or 4 feet, but at 19,000 feet with a heavy pack, that was enough. His leg struck the slope at an angle, driving the bone up through his knee. The joint shattered completely. Simpson has spent 40 years trying to describe the sound and never found the words: a crunch, a collapse, something final. He was 2 days of climbing from base camp in a worsening blizzard with a knee that was structurally gone. Yates looked down. Simpson looked up. They decided to try to get down anyway. Number 3, the system. Yates lowered Simpson 300 feet at a time on the rope, then descended, repositioned, and lowered again in the dark in a blizzard. It was working until Simpson went over an unseen edge and found himself hanging over a void with no visible bottom, unable to climb up or signal Yates through the wind. Above him, Yates sat in a seat carved into the snow, feeling himself dragged slowly off the mountain. For 90 minutes he held on. Then he cut the rope. The math left only one answer: hold on and both die. Cut it and Yates lives and Simpson gets a chance. Not a good one, but a chance. Number 4, the crevasse. Simpson fell roughly 150 feet into a crevasse, something climbers almost never survive alone. He landed on a snow bridge, alive but certain no one was coming. Yates believed him dead. Then Simpson looked down, deeper into the dark, and saw a faint shaft of light far below. Light meant an opening. He lowered himself toward it and found his way out. Number 5, the crawl. What followed, the mountaineering world initially refused to believe. Simpson crawled literally on his hands and one working leg across the glacier for 3 days. No food, melting snow for water, hallucinating, singing songs just to keep moving. Believing Simpson dead, Hawking and Yates were preparing to leave camp. Something made them wait one more day, then another. On the 3rd day, having covered roughly 5 miles, Simpson crawled into camp. Hawking found him at 2 in the morning, barely conscious but alive. Number 6, nothing but his mind. What kept Simpson moving wasn't willpower in the dramatic sense. It was a system. He'd pick a rock and give himself 20 minutes to reach it, not base camp, not survival, just that rock. Then another. 5 miles became 50 100-meter journeys. Lesson 1, look where nobody expects. Simpson looked down in the crevasse, not up. The exit is rarely where the entrance was. Lesson 2, shrink the problem. 5 miles is impossible. 100 meters is merely agonizing, and agonizing is survivable. Lesson 3, the mind outlasts the body. His body kept saying stop. His mind kept picking the next rock. Trust the part still working. Lesson 4, other people's belief in you is irrelevant. Yates believed Simpson dead. The crevasse didn't care, only what Simpson did. Lesson 5, alone doesn't mean without help. He crawled out with no one beside him but carried the training and grit that got him there. Everything that made you who you are crawls out with you. One wrong step led to a destroyed knee, a cut rope, a crevasse, a shaft of light, and 3 days of crawling. Simpson didn't choose any of it, only what he did with it. He went on to write Touching the Void, one of the greatest survival accounts ever written. He kept climbing. He never stopped. Subscribe to Untold Archive. Every Tuesday and Friday, we find the people who went into the dark and came out with something the rest of us need to hear.